computer as a backup in case
Yeah.
something goes wrong, right? So, all right. So tell me how would you rate your coffee chat game currently
Hmm.
in terms of number of coffee chats you're having and how you feel they're bringing new people into your business world?
Yeah. I have a couple, but I don't have like a huge amount.
Yeah.
Like in December or something, I was just doing coffee chats all the time, but also it's capacity thing. So I do have a couple. I would say maybe 1 to 3 per week or something like that.
Okay. Perfect.
Some of them, if it's aligned and the person is interested and we talk about pets and they ask, I will offer them a taster session. And some of them book. Um, about turning into paid clients, I don't think, not from coffee chats directly.
Not from coffee chats
So
directly.
I
Yeah.
think my thing is the taster session was well, too good in the sense
Too
that
good? No, I was going to say too
not
good.
too good. It just had I gave too much in there, so they already got everything they wanted or needed.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't really a reason to have more sessions. I did have like over time, some people turned into a client later on when something came up. So it definitely built rapport, and that was kind of the goal. I mean, I never go into a coffee chat with the goal of making a paid client. I go in
Right.
there with the intention of finding aligned connections, so that people know me, I know them, and we can help each other. And sometimes it's aligned and we stay in each other's world, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's not aligned, and then that's fine.
And that's fine too. I think
Mm.
you just touched upon something that's really important is that there can be a lot of different outcomes from a coffee chat. But what I am going to talk about today is the things that we can do to make sure or to maximize the possibility that the coffee chat leads to something else rather than just ending up being like an amazing conversation you had that just exists on your calendar and doesn't actually move your business forward, right? So, and I think you just touched upon it, is that a lot of us are having these conversations and we are being genuinely curious and we're going in and we're asking questions, but we're not actually seeing it turn into something else. And this doesn't mean that we're bad at conversations. In fact, most of us are actually really pretty good at holding conversations. What it means is that there's a specific skill that's missing when you're in the conversation. And most of us don't even realize that's what's happening. So that's what we're going to kind of cover today is how do we, what is that skill and what are the things that we should be doing in the conversation that will ensure that we get to the end and there is a next step.
Mm.
I can't tell you how many times early on the next step was, well, I hope I see you when we meet. Like that was literally the next step. And so that's what we want to avoid. We don't want it to just be, well, maybe we'll catch back up at some later point. So that skill, and this is what we'll cover today, is really asking open questions with the goal of figuring out how can I best support this person. And the one thing I want everyone watching the replay to walk away with is how you can support someone does not automatically mean they're in a paid container with you or in a that they become a client. There are lots of ways to support the other person without it becoming a paid gig for you. And this actually happens in your written content as well. And for Sina and everyone who is watching the replay, I will talk about how this translates into written content kind of as we go through and then also at the end. But today we're actually going to work on the live version of this asking open-ended questions on this call. Okay, so I've actually got a PowerPoint that I'm going to share. We're going to do my best and hopefully it's actually going to work correctly. And sometimes it does not. All right, hang on just one second here. All right. All right, just bear with me. All right, Now I can't even figure out how to get out of here. All right, hold on just 1 second. Here, it's here. One moment. Okay, Ursina, did my presentation come up? Okay.
Yep,
fantastic.
I see your writing has to do with the same job.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not on the right screen, but yes, that is, totally forgot to do that ahead of time. Okay, hang on, let's see. All right. Present. All right, so here we are. Sometimes I will say, I cannot always figure out how Zoom does this. Okay. I'm just trying to get it because now, right now, you're being highlighted, Ursina, on the on my on the recording. I'm like, oh, I don't think that's what she wants. All right, hang on just 1 second. Switch this around. A little bit of tech. Uh, just sharing. Oh, Lordy. I have done this a number of times. You would think that I would remember how to do this. All right. Ooh. All right, I'm going to go with this one. So, not sure what happened here, but okay. So, this is what we're talking about today. Thank you for letting me work through my tech issues here. So, as I was saying before, we're having the right conversations, but this is going to cover like why they aren't actually building your business network, which includes getting more leads as well as getting referral partners and really expanding the number of people are who can connect you to other people and who you can connect to them. So we've all heard this, right? Coffee chats are billed as business building tools, right? And we all probably know on some level, like we need to be having them, whether or not we're having 1 or 2 a week or we're trying to get 30 in a month. The idea is, we need to be, this is a key component of building our business, building a sustainable business that is bringing in leads and keeping us top of mind with other people in our network. So I'm going to ask you, Ursina, I'm thinking you've heard this before, right? That coffee chats are billed as business building tools. Is that something you've heard before?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Okay. So how many times, not how many times, but does this sound familiar to you that you've had an amazing conversation with someone and you really feel like you connected with that person, but you got off the call and then there was no next step, right? That they had an amazing conversation, but there wasn't a way to follow up with that person. Is that something that's happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, I could have followed up with them, obviously, but about what?
About what? That actually what is the most important thing, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today is the about what part, right? Because I think we've all had these conversations, right? We really connected with someone, they said something that really jived with us, and we shared some laughs. And then we got to the end of the call, and we somehow then couldn't figure out what to do next, right? They weren't a clear client, so we weren't going to offer them another call with us. But we also were just like, well, like not really sure what to do with this. So then we sign off and say things like, well, hope we'll see you around, or hope we'll connect in whatever networking group we're all in. So that's the thing that we are going to be talking about today. they're not just about connecting with the other person or with the other business owner, the connecting with the person behind the business. They are really where they really have their full business building potential is what you do with the conversation that you've had. Because connection by itself isn't going to build your business. Because let's think about this for a second. You can connect with a stranger on the bus or the subway, or with the person who is standing next to you in line at the coffee shop, right? You can comment on their hat, their bag, comment on their coffee order, comment on what's happening on the bus or what's happening outside. And that those are forms of connection, right? But it's not what is going to move your business forward on its own. So connection is great, but that can't be the only reason for having the coffee chat. We have to, in order for this to really start working for our businesses, we have to move beyond connection. And moving a conversation from connection into a business building school takes a little bit of skill and a lot of practice, right? Once you have the skill, you can definitely build the practice, right? But without the skill, every coffee chat is going to kind of feel the same as the ones before. And that's why I want everyone who's watching the replay, Racina, who showed up live for me today, to really think about this skill and how they can implement it on their next coffee chats. So here's the trap. A lot of what feels like a real business question in a coffee chat is actually just small talk wearing different clothes. Think about that for a second, right? I think we all recognize what small talk looks like. Actually, small talk is a little bit like what you're doing with the stranger on the bus or the person in the coffee shop, right? You're just commenting on things that are happening right then and there, or something that they're wearing, or something that you guys are having in common in that moment. But a lot of the questions that we ask other people are actually just this same thing. So let me give an example. When you ask someone, it's like, so what do you do? Or tell me about your business. This sounds like you're actually engaging with the other person and really wanting to know about what they do. But the answer they give you usually doesn't get you any more than asking the person on the bus where they got the jacket, right? Or where they got that fabulous hat they're wearing. Both answers are going to give you information, but probably not enough to move the conversation forward, right? Let that sit for just a second. Because information is not enough to build a follow-up on. It's not enough of a reason to connect with that person later on. And that, like I said, is the trap. That's where a lot of questions stop, is they give you the information, but nothing is open, there's nothing to expand upon. So the key here, right, is to be curious and ask questions. And I know Ursina's probably thinking this, and so are you on you people, everyone who's watching the replay, is what I am asking questions. I'm asking about their business. I'm asking who their ideal client is. I'm asking, like, where did we meet? I'm asking where, maybe you're asking where they're finding clients. Maybe you're asking about, who their clients are. But that's going to get you the information, like literally information, but then what do you do with that information, right? So, Ursina, I'm going to ask you that question is what kinds of questions have you asked on coffee chats that have given you information, but as you mentioned before, didn't actually then give you a reason to follow up with them?
Yeah, the classic, like, what do you do, for sure. I've changed it up a little as to that I know their ideal client and I make sure that I actually understand. So that I can
Good.
serve
Yeah.
people their way. It's still just information. And I've started asking them how I can support them in the like moving forward if they have a launch upcoming or just something that I can support them with. But it's like I've asked it, and most of the time either they don't have anything
Yes,
or
yes.
um or then they say, "Oh yes, I'll tell you when I have another post," but then they don't. And so it's just like, yeah, okay. It hasn't
Right?
really gone anywhere either.
Yeah, it's a way to kind of wrap the conversation up, but it doesn't actually give you like kind of like what you're looking for so that you can follow up with them and keep them in your world. So that's the difference between the kind of questions we're talking about and open-ended questions. So that's what I want to talk about next is these open-ended questions, right? Because that's what is the hallmark of a business building question is it leaves something open, something that you can follow up on, something that you can um, support them with, or and that, like I said, that support could be you refer them to a resource, you refer them to somebody else who solves the exact problem they're having, or who can help them navigate the challenge that they're having, right? But the only way you're going to find out these questions is to ask questions that are open loop. It's more than just information. It actually shines a light onto the thing that they're doing, they're building, they're struggling with, or that they're celebrating, right? So let's go back to, I went too far. Should have left it on this other slide here. Okay. So let's go back to the what do you do, right? So instead of saying what do you do, and Ursina named it, and I've named it too, is you get a pat answer. Instead, if you asked, what do you wish more people understood about what you do? Same territory, right? But now there's somewhere for the answer to go, for you to ask a follow-up question on, for you to make a note on. Because I'm going to turn to Ursina on this one. Ursina, tell me, we're gonna role play this one. Tell me what do you do? What kind of work do you do, Ursina?
I talk with animals.
I
No,
love that. Three
that's
words, very concise. But if you were meeting someone for the first time and
yeah.
you were saying, yes, okay, so pretending you're meeting me for the first time, I'm like, oh, Ursina, I'm so happy that we've had a chance to connect here. Tell me a little bit more about the work you do.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell them, yeah, I talk with animals, and that means that people come to me when they are worried about their pet or their pet's health or behavior, and they just want to know how they're feeling or what they're thinking and how they can support them. Or also when their pet has crossed over to just find peace.
Yes. Okay, I love that. Let's stop for a second. That was a really good answer. And it told me exactly what it is you do. That answer by itself didn't give me anywhere else to go, right? I mean, I could ask you, I could ask a question about, I could ask a follow-up question on that one. But that follow-up question becomes a lot easier when I reframe this and instead of saying, what do you do? Saying, Ursina, talk to me a little bit about your business and what is it you wish more people understood about what you do? How would you answer that question?
So I would probably start with the same, like, so that you actually understand what I'm
Yeah.
doing. And then I would say that I wish that people understood it's not just about getting a message from their animals, but actually understanding that the animals are here with us and they are souls just like us, and you can build a relationship with them just like you do with your kids, your spouse. And that's actually what I help you with.
Okay. So now I'm hoping those of you watching the replay have a much better idea of what Ursina does now, right? It isn't just about receiving communications from either pets that have passed on or from pets that are currently living with you. It is actually what she actually helps you with is using that information to build a relationship with your animal, right? Or if the animal has passed, perhaps it is to set your mind at ease about like what was happening in the time before the animal passed. Does that feel accurate to you, Ursina?
Yeah, and also you could say when it has passed, it can also be about keeping the relationship going.
Perfect. Perfect, right? Because the first question of what do you do, I did not get this. I don't think I would have walked away being like, oh, Ursina can help me continue a relationship with my beloved pet, right? All I got was she can communicate with my pet who has passed away. So that's why the question of what do you what is it that people don't understand gives you much more to hang your hat on. Because now where my brain is going is, oh my gosh, wait a second. I would love to actually know what my dog thinks about living with me, going on her daily walks. What is it? Is there a story that she wants? Is there a story she wants to tell me? Or, oh my gosh, my mom's cat of 20 of not 20 years maybe, but of 15 years recently passed away and she is missing him so much. This is exactly the kind of um, interaction she would love to continue to still have with him, right? And it just opens up this idea of it expands what Ursina does so that there's a way for you to start thinking, is this for me? Or, is there someone I can refer to? Or is there someone whose pet has passed away? So let's just do this in a couple of other ways as well, because I have Ursina here as a live participant and thankfully a very willing volunteer. Okay. So let's try another one. Instead of like, who's your ideal client? Because I think we all know what we get from that is pretty much a pat answer. But let's give this a try. Ursina, who is your ideal client? Who is your ideal client?
I have three,
Oh,
but
great. All right, well, give me two of them. Give me two of
yeah.
them.
So my ideal client is a spiritually open or curious pet parent who is worried about their pet's health or behavior, or has just gotten a difficult diagnosis and wants to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and how they can support them best through this time. So that's like the client for the living animals, but in there, there's already like three different problems they have.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so yeah, and the other one would be when an animal has crossed over and you want to find peace, you want to stay connected, you just want to know their perspective, and help relieve your guilt that you might be carrying.
Okay, so you actually just bled into your answer, kind of bled into what I'm thinking the other question would surface, but
Yeah.
let's just go with it anyway, right?
Okay.
Um, so instead of who's your ideal client, if I ask the question, okay, so if I run into your ideal client tomorrow, what is she going to say is going on in her life? What's the thing that's happening that would make her a person that you would be able to help?
Right. Oh, yeah. She just has gotten a difficult diagnosis for her pet and she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how her animal is feeling, if she would need to put them down or need if the animal would want help to go, if she wished to do that invasive treatment.
Yes. All right. I feel like that second answer gave me a lot more information than the first answer did.
Hmm.
Yes, they both include a difficult diagnosis, but the second answer surfaced this idea of wanting to find out if the pet is looking for help and support in passing on. That didn't come out in the first answer. Um, and it also surfaced, well, not also, I think it surfaced that additional piece that you didn't include the first time we asked the question.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna do this one more time because I don't
Maybe
want to like, oh, go ahead, yeah.
there's one thing that just popped into my mind is when you ask me who is your ideal client, I kind of try to fit all of them into one description. And when you ask me the other question, then I'm going to go into a specific situation and I'm only describing that one. And then can I say that that's one ideal client and then I can describe another situation. That's another ideal client. So it kind of makes me think differently. Instead of trying to mush everything together, I go into a
I
specific situation.
I love that. I love that. And that is actually the point of asking, of reframing these questions in a way that's more open-ended, right? Because you're right, we all do that. We are all like, oh, great, I can help all these people. I'm going to try and put it all into one big,
Yeah.
one category that this other person can understand. But when you give somebody the space to actually describe with specificity what is going on, that is going to give the other person a much more nuanced idea of like how you actually help. And that's what you want people to really walk away with, right? Because that's actually the whole point of these conversations is to take advantage of the space and the time to really convey to the other person what you do, that you can't do in an elevator pitch, or you can't do in just a 30-second networking spiel. And then the same works, it works the other way, is you want to also give the other person that space to be able to do this so that you can get the same information back, so that you actually then have a much better idea as to who they can help. And if there's anyone that if there's anyone that that can benefit from working with them. So, um, so that's what brings us to this, is that if the answer to the open question is what you follow up on, and it guides your next step, right? So I'm going to use a made up person now because Orsina was a very gracious volunteer. But if the answer to the question, if you ask the question of like, what is another example, what is the thing you are working on right now that you are super excited about, right? Whatever they say next, that's probably the thing you're going to want to follow up on. All right, I'm going to pick on Rosina again. If I were to ask you that question, what would you say? What is the thing you're working on right now that you're super excited about?
I'm actually getting that offer out for exactly the client I described in the previous question who just gotten a difficult diagnosis.
Perfect. Perfect, right? So what Ursina has just told me is she's working on a new offer, and for that client. That's exactly the thing I can follow up with her on, right? If in another 2 weeks I can go back to her and be like, "Hey, I really loved our chat a few weeks back. You mentioned you were working on a new offer for pet owners or for pet parents who had received a difficult diagnosis. How is that going?" Right?
Mhm.
That is a perfectly good way to continue the conversation that you started in the coffee chat. And it's that continuing of the conversation. That's the piece that actually makes these coffee chats business building activities, right? So the other thing that could happen is, let's just say Ursina said that, and let's just say she had also said, yes, I'm working on getting this offer out, but I'm really struggling to figure out what what platform I'm going to use to host this course on. I know it's not a course, but let's just say it was, right? I'm really trying to figure it out. The one that I have right now, like, isn't really robust enough. And I'm working on figuring that out. All right. So now first of all, if I'm someone who does that, I can be like, okay, wait, maybe I can help her with my own experience. Or maybe what I ask is, oh, like, what platforms are you considering? And when she tells me, for example, Kajabi, and I'm thinking, oh, wait, I know someone who is a Kajabi expert. Or if she had said, go high level, like, I know someone who does that, right? And that's when you can give that piece of information to her as well. So I think that's the reason for asking as many open up-ended questions as you can, because you never really know what's going to surface. And you're on the lookout for the follow-up thing, as well as, do I have a resource? Do I have a resource, a tool, or a connection that I can pass on to Ursina, right? Okay. So let's just see here.
Do you have a cheat sheet of good open questions?
You know what I'm going to do? Because you asked, Ursina, I'm going to put them in the follow-up email.
Woohoo! Nice.
Right. I'll include them in the follow-up email. See, she just asked me something super specific. She named it. I just said I'm going to do it. So now everyone on the replay, you should be seeing this in the email, like some of these, either a cheat sheet or else I'll just put it into the body of the email about the types of questions that you can ask. Okay. So all right. This was originally when I was thinking we might have more people in the room because I've already done this with Ursina. So I'm not actually going to make her role play with me again because that would be a lot, right? She might never come to another workshop that I do. But like I said, it shows you how you can help, right? And I just want to cover a little bit down here, this connection resource, a specific date to follow up. You'll notice I say a direct ask, and then I've got a little maybe here because a direct ask is, in my opinion, is not the primary thing you want to be on the lookout for. If it surfaces, if, just like I was saying, if Ursina had said she needed some tech help, I was someone who offered that kind of help, then I could say, you know what, this is exactly how I help my clients. Would you like to get on another call to talk about it, right? Or do you have 5 minutes now and we can talk about it now? But mostly what you're thinking about is, what is she saying she's struggling with? What is she saying she's working on? What is she saying where is she saying she wants her business to go in the next 6 months? Do I have anything I can offer her? A connection, a resource, right? And those are things you can do right there on the call. Just, put the name of the person in the chat, put the link to the tool, to the resource in the chat, right? Those are easy. The next part is a specific date to follow up, right? So maybe you don't have a connection or a resource right in that moment, but you do know you're going to follow up with her, right? So that's what you need to do next, is you say the next step out loud. This is it. This is the habit that gets your coffee chats to move from just conversations with you where you connect with another person to a real business building tool. Because when you, just like Ursina and I did right now, she's like, Susan, do you have a cheat sheet of these open-ended questions? And I say, you know what, I don't, but I'm going to put it in the replay email. That is saying the next step out loud, right? So in the conversation, and when you're having a conversation with somebody, as you're wrapping up the call, think about the thing that they said. Think about some of the things that really kind of piqued your curiosity. Maybe you made a note of it. Maybe it just was something that was super interesting. And you say, Ursina, I am so excited to learn more about your offer for pet parents who have gotten a really difficult diagnosis. I'm definitely going to follow up with you in mid-September to see how that's going. Maybe she's already said when she's planning on rolling it out, right? So that could have been a follow-up question that you asked. So maybe she said, I'm going to roll it out by, August 31st. Sorry. Yes, August 31st. And you can be like, you know what? I'm definitely going to follow up with you about that. I definitely want to hear how that's going, right? And that's reason enough to send her a DM, to follow up with an email, however it is you've connected with this person. And they'll probably have something to say at the point at which you follow up with them. But the point is, you said it out loud, they heard it, you're writing it down, you're putting it in your follow-up tracker, and you're doing the thing, right? So here's the thing. This is not where you have to invite them to work with you. You just have to name the next step. And that next step is going to feel, it just needs to feel aligned with you. I'm trying to think of some of the next steps that I have done or that I have said out loud is I have said, I'm going to follow you on LinkedIn. Give me your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to follow you there. That's it. You've just done the next step. But maybe the next step isn't something you're going to do right today or tomorrow. Maybe it's going to be something you're going to do next week, right? say it out loud anyway. One of the things that I do, particularly in We Meet, and I'm thinking most of the people who are watching this replay are indeed We Meeters, is when I have a coffee chat, I will say to them, hey, I'd love to get a screenshot of this. I'm going to put a shout out post in the We Meet school group. That's my next step. I've just told them what I'm doing. And that's the thing. So now they can be on the lookout for it. You know, they won't be surprised when when they get a school notification saying that I've tagged them in something, right? So Ursina, reflecting back on probably your earlier coffee chats, like when you were in your full blown coffee chat season, what are some of the things that you could have said out loud but you didn't? Like, what are some of the next steps you could have said, but it didn't occur to you to do it, or you just didn't think that you needed to say it out loud?
Oh, that's a good question. Hmm. The thing is, in the earlier coffee chats, a lot of the times I did the screenshot and post because that's like what Sam taught us. And
Yeah.
so, but I didn't specifically say it out loud. I just said, oh, let's take a screenshot. That way we can tag each other. Maybe
Yeah.
I did say it out loud, but I didn't realize what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to think about because in those days I really just really consistently did that. That's how I got visible in the group.
Which I would like to just point out was a business building activity for you,
Yeah,
right? Increasing your visibility in the group by doing those posts
that's
actually is
true.
exactly what kind of vaulted you up into one of the, probably one of the most recognizable people in We Meet these days, right?
Mhm.
So that, maybe you didn't name it out loud, but you actually were doing it. But those are the types of things that I would encourage everyone to think about is what is the next thing I can do? And a lens that I use to think about this is how can I carry on this conversation? How can I continue this conversation? How can I um, re engage with this person and have them continue to engage with me? Because that re engaging, that continuing the conversation, that is how you build a business network where you understand what the other person is doing, they understand what you're doing, and they provide support, resources, referrals to help you do the thing that you're doing. So the coffee chat is really kind of like just the beginning of this, right? It's kind of what you do before you get off the Zoom call. What do you do then? And then it becomes part of your follow up, right?
Mhm.
But the key here is the open questions, right? Um, when you say, I think I might have said this, so if I'm repeating it, bear with me. So when you say it out loud and it's confirmed by the other person, what you've named becomes the shared point between you, not just something you privately thought maybe you would do.
Mhm.
Um, and it's the saying it out loud that's what actually then cements the fact that you're going to follow up and keep the conversation going instead of the conversation just ending on the call and then nothing else comes to it. So Ursina, what is your takeaway on this? Share something if there was a golden nugget, if there was a takeaway, there was something you now know about coffee chats that you did not know coming into the workshop.
Yeah, definitely the way you ask questions, like reframing the questions so that it gives people a better entry to share instead of just repeating their usual blurb.
Yes, yes. It's really, it's kind of the reframing of the question is kind of the same. It's very similar in a way to create having a scroll stopper on your social media posts, right? Is
Mhm.
you want to get people thinking about how do I answer this? Not the same way I always do, but what's this other way? When they hear the question differently, they their brain very quickly pivots to answering it a different way, even though the way they normally would answer it is probably still top of mind. When they hear it differently, they answer it differently. And we saw it with Ursina, right? When I asked her the question about what is it that people don't understand, we got a little bit more into the fact that you could have a relationship with your pet even though your pet had passed on, which is not what came out when I first said, so what is it you do?
Yeah. And
So,
I think,
yeah,
sorry.
no, go, please go
So when
ahead.
you just ask the normal type thing, then it's more or less automated, is the thing that you always say. And when you ask the question a different way, it made me think. And that way, new information that I maybe just learned uh, in a recent client call or whatever can surface because it makes me think and makes me maybe mention that example.
Yes, yes. And that actually something Ursina said is the most important point here is you're always looking to surface new information, right? You don't just want to hear the thing that they normally say. You want to hear the thing that lights them up. You want to hear them really talk about their ideal client or really talk about the business that they're building and the challenges that they're having. And it all starts with how you ask the question, right? Like how you frame the question so that their brain hears it a different way. So that actually just brings me to the end of the workshop, but I do just want to talk a little bit about how I work with clients because your writing has to do the same job that your questions do in your coffee chat, right? And so when you're writing about your business and your emails and your posts, you have to you have to get the same information across, but you don't have the luxury of like a back and forth as you do in a conversation, which actually is why the conversations are so powerful. But that's an aside because obviously you have to write and have conversations. You can't just do one or the other, right? So your content has to make the other person feel like you're having a conversation with them. The problem is there's no cues, there's no visual cues or audio cues or any kind of cues to know whether or not what you're saying is landing. And there's no way to be like, well, like, hey, does that make sense? Like you can do that in a conversation and the other person can say, well, like I've got a couple questions or something you said I didn't quite get. That doesn't happen in writing, right? So it's the exact same job, but just harder conditions, right? So that's actually what I help my clients with is, and I'm making this offer to Orsina and anyone who is watching the replay, is I'm offering something that I'm calling the Is It Landing call. It's just one call where you bring one piece of writing, whether it's an email, a landing page, or a social media post, and we find the place where it stops landing with your people. I'm going to put the link in the chat for Ursina to grab it if she wants. I'm also going to stop sharing, so hang on a second. And then I'm also going to, all right, hang on. I can't multitask, so give me just 1 second here while I put the link in the chat. Oh my gosh. Okay. But I will also include this link in the replay. So I want to thank Ursina from the bottom of my heart for showing up live and being such a willing participant in my role playing and bringing up some questions that she's asked or that the questions that she normally asks and how she might think of them differently. And for anyone watching the replay, please feel free to reply to that email. I'm happy to answer any questions. Would love to hear your takeaways, what you're going to try in your next coffee chat. Maybe this workshop has inspired you to hold more coffee chats. But whatever you're walking away with, I would love to hear from you. So thank you, everyone.